Please open up to page 202 in your social studies book so you can follow along with me. We're actually going to do 2 lessons today because they're both very short, and the first one is super easy. So I'm going to read through lesson 1 pretty quickly and then spend a little bit more time on lesson 2. Okay, citizens are people who live in a certain place. So you can be citizens of Corona, you can be citizens of the state of California, citizens of the United States. So citizens can help. There are many ways that you can be a good citizen when you are in school. You can follow classroom rules, pass out books or papers, and help keep the classroom clean. You can also listen when other people are talking. Just as you can help out in your classroom, you can also be a good citizen in your community. So down here you have a volunteer crossing guard, and they're helping children walk across the street. Sometimes you see those in the morning on your way to school, and they wait at the corner until there's a couple kids, and then they stop the traffic and help the children go across the street. Sometimes you can get paid for doing that, or sometimes you volunteer and you can get that. Okay. So public virtue is working at an animal shelter or helping neighbors are 2 ways to show public virtue. So that's when you do something good and you help people. So working for the community. As good citizens, you should obey laws or change them to make them better. You can speak up to make things fairer. Altogether. By being a good citizen, you make your community a better place to live. People who are good citizens show public virtue. Public virtue means doing something for the good of the community. Keeping parks clean or working to solve community problems are 2 ways to show public virtue. Citizens can help even more by working together. Suppose you want to pick up trash at a nearby park. If your classmates help, the cleanup would go faster. If community groups and local leaders joined in, it might just take a few hours. Sometimes they do at the beach, and they have beach cleanup days. Everybody goes to the beach and they clean up. And then when they're done, everybody relaxes and enjoys the beautiful, clean beach together. Okay, Paradise Valley, Arizona. These Arizona students helped build a new house in their town. So here's the United States, and this is the state of Arizona. And you can see that Paradise Valley is where that little black dot is. Ways to help others. Some people take part in their school or community by working as a volunteer. A volunteer is a person who works freely without pay. Volunteers care about other people, not just themselves. So it's like you have a job and you go there and you help, but you just don't get paid. A lot of people that work at the library are volunteers, and like at the Corona Public Library, and they just go in and volunteer their time and help students with homework and things like that just because they want to give back to the community. Student volunteers. In Paradise Valley, Arizona, a group of students wanted to help their community. After talking with community leaders, they decided to build a house for a family in their town. They worked with Habitat for Humanities, that's Habitat for Humanities, which is a volunteer group that helps families all over the world to build houses. First, the students raised money for supplies and materials. They sold t-shirts, washed cars, and held a dance. They asked community leaders for help. Many business owners gave money and supplies. Habitat for Humanities has a big headquarters, a big office right here in Riverside. And I think once you're 16, you can volunteer to help them build houses. And they teach you what to do, and you can paint, little pieces of the wall and things like that. So it's really a neat way to be able to help. Okay, so then the students and the other volunteers started building. They had lots of help. Habitat for Humanity workers showed them how to plan and build. Carpenters showed older students how to cut wood. Painters taught younger students to paint walls. The family that would own the house also worked with the volunteers. At last, the house was finished. Everyone celebrated. The students felt proud. They hoped to build more houses in the future. Altogether, by helping to build a house, the students and volunteers were showing public virtue. So public virtue is when you're able to help other people in your community. Okay, I want you to fast forward here to page 212. Okay, so go in your book all the way to page 212. Okay, rights and responsibilities. Now we're going to get into you learned what a citizen is, and now I want to teach you What rights do you have as a citizen and what responsibility do you have? Okay, build on what you know. In some countries, many children cannot go to school. In the United States, however, children are free to go to public school. The freedom to learn brings with it a duty or a responsibility to learn. Knowing about rights. Most newspapers print letters from their readers. In their letters, people tell what they think about articles in the paper. People in the United States share their opinions freely. They have the right to say what they think. A right is a freedom, okay? That's not necessarily the case in other parts of the world. Sometimes you don't have a right to say, I don't like the president. You could actually go to jail for that. They do not allow you to speak your opinion if that is not what the government wants you to say, okay? Altogether, United States citizens have many rights. Some are stated in the Bill of Rights, which is part of the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution explains the nation's government. It says that one job of the government is to protect the rights of the citizens. So here we have a student shares her opinion in a letter to the editor. Dear editor, I read in your newspaper what the leader of our town said about the traffic on Palm Drive. I ride my bike to school along that street. Mrs. Lee was right when she, I don't know, we have the rest of it. It's just giving us an example, probably when she said that it's dangerous for children. Okay, what are the rights of citizens? One right that a United States citizen has, citizens have is called freedom of religion. Okay, and that's right here. That means we can go to whatever church we want or not go to church. People have the right to not believe in God, to not go to church, or they can choose to go to any church they want that is any religion. That is not necessarily the case in other countries. So that's why so many people like to come to the United States and want to move here, because we do have that freedom of religion. So citizens may practice their religion or no religion at all. Another right is freedom of assembly. Now, they don't have a picture there, but that is that you can get together and meet with other people and basically have a party, have a meeting, that kind of thing. You don't have to request it from the government, okay? So this means citizens can meet together whenever they choose. They can protest unfair laws. We're seeing that right now where you have people protesting the lockdown. That is a constitutional right to do so. They have to do it safely. They have to follow the laws. They can't, hit cars as they drive by. They have to follow the laws, but our Constitution gives them the right of assembly, which means they can get together and they can protest and say this isn't fair. Americans have the right to own property, okay? That means that you can actually own a house. You can own a farm. You can own, the land that a business sits on. Okay, for a long time, women were not allowed to own property, even in the United States. So it took an amendment to change and say that women have the same rights that men do, and women can also own property. Okay, Americans, they also have the right to privacy or to keep their secrets. Okay. They do that a lot with our medical. Doctors can't share your medical information with the next patient that comes in and say, that patient that just left, do you know that she has this medical problem? They are not allowed to do that. Okay. Citizens are free to do these and many other things as long as they obey the law. Okay. And freedom of the press means that newspapers can, you've probably seen them if you've seen any of the press conferences with the president. There's people that sit there and they ask questions of the president about, COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And then they, write up their newspaper articles and print them, and people can either read them online or they can, get the actual newspaper. Okay. So freedom of speech can be that you're protesting, but it's also that the newspaper people have, the reporters also have the right to free speech, and that they can say what they want. They can say the president is wrong. if they want. And that's important for our country. Okay, so, all right, so let's see. We have rights and we have responsibilities. Okay, the rights, things that these are owed to you. You have the right to say what you think. You have the right to vote once you're 18. You have the right to be protected by laws. As children, you're protected. A lot of laws are there to protect you, okay? You have a right by a trial by jury. That means if you get arrested for something, that you have a right to have 12 people decide whether you are guilty or innocent, not necessarily just a judge. And you have the right to practice whatever religion you would like to do, okay? With these rights, because you have these rights, you have a responsibility to use these rights fairly. So you have a right to say what you think, but you have a responsibility to speak truthfully. So you can say what you think, but you shouldn't tell lies just because you can, okay? You have a right to vote for a leader, therefore you have a responsibility to vote, okay? That's a responsibility, things that you should do. You have a right to be protected by the laws. You have a responsibility to obey those laws or fight for change if you feel that the law needs to be changed. That's your responsibility as a citizen. It's not fair to have a right to be protected by the law and then to break those laws. Okay, they kind of go hand in hand. If you're going to be protected by them, you need to follow them. You have a right to have 12 people decide whether or not you are guilty. Therefore, you have a responsibility to serve when you get called for jury duty. Ask your parents about that. We get things in the mail about once a year that say we need to go to jury duty, and a lot of people don't like to do it. You know, you have to take the day off work, and it's difficult, and you have to sit there a long time. But as citizens of our country, we have a responsibility to do it. Okay. You have a right to practice religion, and you have a responsibility to respect other people's right to practice their religion. And we talk about that a lot in school, that religion may not be right for us, but we respect that it's right for them, okay? All right, so knowing our responsibilities. Citizens have many rights, but they also have many responsibilities. A responsibility is something you should do. One responsibility everyone has is to respect people's property. You may not take other people's things without permission. That would interfere with their right to own property. It would also break the law. Obeying laws is very important. It is one of our responsibilities. A person who does not obey a law may pay a fine or go to jail. If a law is unfair, however, citizens are responsible for changing it. That means that you get people together and you go talk to the city council and you say, I don't think that this law is fair. Okay. Going to school is a responsibility that young people have. Okay. You have a right to go to school. Therefore, you have a responsibility to learn and put effort in and get the most out of it that you possibly can. The work that you do in school gives you knowledge that you can use someday in a job. A good education will help you serve your community too. And I would even take a step further and say the fact that your parents are, making financial sacrifices to send you to the school that they do, you have an even greater responsibility to pay attention, to do your best, to get the best education that your teachers and our school can offer you so that you can be successful and help your community be a better place when you grow older. Okay. Voting is a right and a responsibility. Remember over here? It's exactly the same. A lot of these are a little bit different, but a right, vote for leaders. A responsibility, vote for leaders. It's a right and a responsibility. Woo, sorry about that. Adult citizens have many responsibilities. For example, they may serve in the military or on a jury. Adults also have the responsibility to vote. To vote means to make an official choice. And you're going to learn a lot about voting this year when you start fourth grade, because we're going to have a huge election in November of 2020. So I'm sure your fourth grade teacher will teach you a lot about the elections and voting and things like that. The Constitution says that every adult citizen has the right to vote. Citizens vote to choose leaders for the community, state, and national governments. Sometimes citizens vote about changing the laws. To vote wisely, citizens first need to learn about issues in their community. Then on voting day, they need to vote. Unless citizens vote, their opinions may not count.